This is Thomas Paul's week, this time from Philadelphia in the United States of America. I'm here in Westminster Theological Seminary, founded in 1928, one of the lighthouses of Reformed theology. At the same time, they're doing services to all of the churches in their immense academic research. For example, I admire that at some point the Old Testament in its original, the Hebrew text of the Old Testament, as all the churches use it, had to put into a digital version. And it was Westminster Theological Seminary that made that possible. And so every theologian in the world uses this nowadays, not knowing that Westminster Theological Seminary is behind it. And by the way, evangelical churches are always happy if they can give a gift to other churches. I'm sitting here with one of the professors of Westminster Theological Seminary, Mark Garcia, but I'm not sitting here with him as a professor of the Westminster Theological Seminary, but as the president of Greystone Institute, which is closely related to Westminster. They do a lot of things together. But I'm interested now, number one, what is the passion of the Greystone Institute? What is the real story behind it?
Thank you so much, Thomas. The story behind Greystone is firstly, a commitment to trying to be useful, simply to be useful to the church wherever she is found, which begins with looking at the condition of the church, how institutions are already serving the church, and then early on we used the language of filling gaps. So we were a gap-filling organization. So what institutions wanted to do but could not do for any number of often very good reasons, we would only do those things that would help the church and extend the benefits and work of that institution. But over time, in God's providence, it became possible to do more and more in executing our vision and mission, which is rooted in our commitment to the reality of the biblical world. And if we recognize that the biblical world is the real world that we inhabit by faith, it means that we have to take very seriously what the scriptures say about who we are as people and who the church is. How people are formed is something of great concern to a theological institution like Westminster and like Greystone. Well, in the biblical world, people are formed not merely by having good content, good ideas, but they are formed in keeping with how God made us. We are embodied image bearers. And so the patterns and rhythms of communal life, the congregations you belong to, the ministry of word and sacrament, the relationships and friendships we enjoy, the fact that we are growing over time from becoming from children to becoming adults and then older adults, these contexts of our lives in God's providence are part of the story of how we are formed. And so at Greystone, we are committed to the cultivation of a whole culture of formation. So we not only convey rigorous content, theological content, data, information, but our days start and end with morning and evening prayers. They include feasting, meal times together, conversation times, fellowship, times of labor and of service to those in the community, times of dedicated mentorship most of all, where we learn from those who have experienced things before us, as well as the content, but as part of a whole picture of how God forms his people. So this is why Greystone does what it does. We have mentorship context in what we call learning communities, where people receive content in Old and New Testaments, theology, ethics, systematic theology, apologetics, but not as mere data, but in an overall context where people are formed in the rhythms and habits of a faithful Christian life and community.
Okay, if I would be a church leader out there anywhere in the world, and I would be thinking about young brilliant leader I have in my church, and I want him to get more theological training, to be formed to become a future leader of the church. What for me as the church leader is in it to connect him to Greystone. What would be the special thing you have to offer in light of the fact that there are thousands of institutions worldwide that would run for my guy. I want to be trained.
That's a great question. So our approach is different from a conventional approach in that a conventional approach will be asking, what can we do for that young student? What can we do for that person directly? What content can we give them? What resources can we give them? And of course, that's a main interest we have as well, but with this difference. We are also focused on you as his mentor, you as his church leader. How can we help you be what God has called you to be in his providence as a resource of wisdom and formation for him? So what we do is we provide support, resources, connections, and a framework where not only is he trained and educated, but you are supported and you are trained to be a mentor for him. So everyone who is going to be and serves as a mentor in Greystone's network is trained by Greystone in a mentorship workshop. And they have to go through our modest but still very important training workshop in order to ensure that the persons who are studying on the ground in those congregations under your oversight and leadership are enjoying the blessing of your leadership as a faithful mentor. It means that on the one hand, you as the mentor do not bear the burden of having to be the expert in theology, ethics, biblical studies, because we are providing the taught content. We're providing the rigorous curriculum. But it does mean that what God has already blessed you with and called you to becomes part of the picture of his formation. He has called you to be a spiritual counselor, a man who is specializing in soul care. And we fold that pastoral relationship into the picture of that young man's formation. And we support you and we support him, but we support you together rather than only think about how to get him content.
Okay, I can see this as being very relevant if the guy comes back, because he will not. I experience this, that people come back and they then come from an institution and come with totally new ideas and plans,
Yes.
which do not fit their old church any longer. So I can see that he comes back, and you probably meanwhile will have worked with me and my church already. So we are open to get the challenges the young guy might bring back to the church. So thank you very much, my friends. Check out Greystone Institute, and please pray. Pray for Professor Garcia as the president. Pray for all the people involved, that they have wisdom how to expand the program. They just start a new program for future Anglican ministers, specifically designed for people from Anglican background here in the US. And also pray for the students.